Diabetes Connections is brought to you by Animas Corporation, providing insulin delivery products for people living with diabetes and part of the One Touch family. And by Dexcom. Take control of your diabetes with the world's first continuous glucose monitoring system that sends glucose readings directly to your compatible smart device. Live life on your own terms with Dexcom. Hey, it's Stacey. This podcast is not intended as medical advice. You know that. I'm not a doctor. If you have those kinds of questions, please contact your healthcare provider.
This is Diabetes Connections with Stacey Sims.
This week, two fantastic groups are coming together later in the year. For the first time, the Diabetes Unconference and Diabetes Sisters Weekend for Women will be in the same place at the same time.
It is wonderful to be able to create this peer-to-peer support that goes well beyond a single weekend. These have become some of the closest friends that I have ever had.
Christel Aprigliano from the Unconference and Anna Norton from Diabetes Sisters talk about what they do, why they're coming together, and what you can expect if you attend the joint conferences this fall. Plus, Bike Beyond keeps going on. This week, meet Kevin Moore, diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 1971, before most of the other riders were born.
I always say that I've had over 300,000 plus injections and counting. I'm a winner, not a whiner, but a cure would be so much finer.
Kevin has a lot of those inspirational sayings. He is fun, and we catch up to him. Plus, it is Podcast Awards season. Who knew there was such a thing? I would love your help. I'll make it easy, tell you all about it. It all starts now on Diabetes Connections. Welcome to another week of the show. So glad you could join me. If you're new to Diabetes Connections, hi, I'm Stacey Sims. My son Benny was diagnosed just before he turned 2 with type 1. He is now 12 and a half. I don't have type 1 myself. I do have a background in local radio and TV news, and that's kind of how the podcast got put together. Here we try to educate and inspire about type 1 diabetes by sharing stories of connection from celebrities and athletes in our community, as well as the healthcare companies and tech folks that keep pushing the limits. And even if you're not racing across the Arctic or giving TED Talks about diabetes, just living day to day with type 1. I want to tell your story, and that's what the show is all about. So I am still digging out from the Friends for Life conference, which happened the week of July 4th. That is the largest family diabetes conference in the world. I made the wonderful decision to go on vacation the week before that, which actually was terrific. But if I owe you an email, it's coming. I promise. It has been a wild couple of weeks. I'm asked often, how do you get ideas for the show? How do you find people for Diabetes Connections? It's really very easy. There are so many amazing stories in our community, and I have a list I keep that I'm never going to catch up on. But I also take pics. I take a lot of pictures on my phone if I see something on social media and I want to remember. My phone is full. It's ridiculous. I have to go through and remove and make real lists and remove a lot of those pictures. And the emails are still coming in from the wonderful people I met at the conference in Florida. So, we are digging out, and there's some great stuff happening that I cannot wait to share with you in the weeks to come. All right, we're talking about the Unconference and the Weekend for Women. The Unconference has a special place in my heart and always will, because it was the subject of the very first podcast 2 years ago in summer of 2015. So I have yet to go to the Unconference. And an Unconference, if you're not familiar, is where the agenda is not set. Usually when you go to any of these conferences, you get a pamphlet or at least an email that says, here's this session, this time, this guy's leading it, blah, blah, blah. The Unconference, you show up and they let you set the agenda. The attendees decide what they want to hear about. I have never been to an Unconference. I've never been to the Diabetes Unconference, so I'm not exactly sure how it all works. And they're also very careful about oversharing. They don't want people talking a lot on social media because they want the Diabetes Unconference to be a really private and valuable experience that way. So I'm excited to go this year and learn about what really happens. And you'll hear Christel talk about it. It's not super secret. I mean, they just want people to have their privacy. And the Weekend for Women, I've also never attended, and I'm really excited to find out more about that. Those two events are happening on the same weekend in October, and that's why I brought Christel and Anna here on the show to share. I need to tell you about 2 ways that I need your help, that you can help the podcast. And this is a little awkward because I'm asking you to help the podcast win awards, but this is really a great way to reach other people. I entered these contests because I am trying to get your stories to as many people as possible and spread the word about podcasting. It's kind of hard to do. I mean, if you're listening, you get it, but probably half of the people I talk to still don't know what a podcast is or how to listen to mine. I had a lot of people at Friends for Life ask me how they could see the podcast. Oh, I just don't have time to watch it. So there's a lot of education that needs to happen, and these awards will really help. So I'm going to link these up with the episode. Very easy. These are both one-time votes. This is not a everyday please nominate me or something like that. I did that last summer, and I will never do that again. That was hard, and it was hard on you. So the first one I want to tell you about is the WEGO Health Awards, and they say on their website, nominate the exceptional patient advocates, influencers, and experts who make a difference in the lives of patients and caregivers. So I've been nominated in a couple of categories, and thank you so much, whoever nominated me. That was a thrill to see and get those emails. One of which is a podcast award. I'll link that up. Just go to WEGO Health. I'm already nominated. You can just click endorse, which helps a lot. There are many people in the diabetes community who are nominated, and feel free. I believe there's still time, as of this podcast airing, to nominate someone you think makes a big difference. These are bloggers and patient leaders, and podcast folks. But go ahead. I actually nominated a couple of people in our community as well. So if you think of someone that you would like to get some recognition, that's the way to do it. The other award that I'm up for is People's Choice Podcast. And I was up for this last year. I ended up in the top 10, which was very cool because it's not just health podcasts. This is any podcast that has a show in 2017. So again, I'll link it up. I am nominated. You just need to click it once. You can vote for lots of other podcasts. I don't think you can nominate anybody else. You may be able to for the podcast awards. I think that ends at the end of July. But I'm already nominated, so just click on that. You can only vote once in the category. So if you see another health podcast you'd prefer, vote for them. Please don't, but vote for them because you can only vote once. And there are lots of other categories. Okay, enough. Again, I'll link it all up at diabetes-connections.com. Quick word from Animas. I was excited to see that with the new insulin delivery system, Animas and OneTouch are coming together. I've been happy with Animas and its products for the nearly 10 years we've been using Animas pumps for Benny. We also love the OneTouch products that help us make managing diabetes more simple. Putting those two brands together makes perfect sense to me. Now OneTouch has an even wider range of products available to help people confidently move forward in managing their diabetes. To find out more about Animas, part of the OneTouch family, go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Animas, part of the OneTouch family logo. Team Bike Beyond is currently underway. Their epic 10-week adventure pedaling from New York City to San Francisco, and I have the privilege of bringing you so many of their stories. Thrilled to be talking to these amazing people with type 1, 20 people with type 1. Most of them have never done anything like this. They are all amateur cyclists, and these are not professionals. And they have passed through Kansas last I saw. We're going to try to get some more reports on the road, but I spoke to a lot of them before the ride even started. And that's when I caught up with Kevin Moore. Kevin is 52 years old. He was diagnosed in kindergarten. And as I said earlier, he has had type 1 longer than some of the riders on Bike Beyond have been alive. He is great to talk to. He is just snappy and full of energy. He has been biking for a very long time, but not in an event like this. As with all of the riders, they are collecting donations. If you would like to donate to Kevin, I will link right up to his fundraising page, or any of the riders. These are funds that are going to great diabetes causes. Bike Beyond will link up all of their charities that they give to. It's very easy to find on their website. So here is my conversation with Kevin Moore. Kevin, I'm so glad you could join me. Thanks for spending some time before you set off on this epic journey. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me.
Tell me about your story. You were diagnosed at a time where, gosh, I guess a lot of people on the bike ride can't imagine the tools that you didn't have. Do you remember your diagnosis?
Oh, yes. I actually remember it like it was yesterday, believe it or not. And it was in 1971, which I refer to as the Stone Age of type 1 diabetes maintenance and care. And, it's unfortunate, like everybody today, and this just blows my mind. I just cracked 52 in January, and we're still having this same conversation of misdiagnosis, children, infants, teens, adults, unfortunately dying from misdiagnosis. And how can that possibly be when in 1971, I was in a near-death coma, sitting in kindergarten at the age of 6 years old, and my teacher called my mother, bless her heart, Miss Carol Rose, may you rest in peace, by the way. Just an amazing lady calls my mother and says, you got to get your boy to the hospital. There's something definitely wrong. Well, we'd already been to the doctor for 3 and 4 months prior to this with the same issue. Mm-hmm. And, it's just unfortunate, and that is the big reason I do what I do in the T1D world, is because we're still having that conversation, and that's just wrong. And we have to change that because, oh my God, it's, as we both know, it's a crazy chronic disease that's non-curable. However, I've had it now for 46 years. It's never kept me from accomplishing anything in life with the exception of flying airplanes.
And as I'm reading about you, you grew up in Montana, which, man, what an amazing place that must be. But you've also been on your bike for a long time. Yes,
and so, it's crazy that I grew up in a very small town along the Missouri River by the name of Cascade, Montana, where, the people there would give you their shirt off your back to help you anything. I mean, it's just amazing, those community. Unfortunately, they do have this thing called winter, and I'm allergic to snow shovels and ice scrapers, and hence the reason I'm in sunny San Diego. However, we grew up bicycling from the time we could actually get on a bicycle and roll, and it's just a different environment there because, it's a small town. I'm betting today that town maybe has 800 to 1,000 population somewhere, but it's just the most beautiful place along the Missouri River and a great place to grow up and a great place to visit also. And one day I will be back there, but I just can't stay there in the winter, I don't think. And so, yes, and so with that being said, I've been cycling for many years, done a few triathlons, was actually hit by a hit-and-run driver in 2014, and so it knocked me out of the game for, almost 3 years, 2.5 years. Had a total left knee replacement in December of 2015, which allowed me to get back on the bike, which is, that's my stress relief, that's my T1D control. There's nothing better, in my opinion, than getting on a bicycle and riding. And so to have the ability to do that from New York City to San Francisco, where we're educating, advocating, raising proceeds to help find a cure, that is just like a dream come true for me.
Wow. What was it like when you saw that Beyond Type 1 was looking for cyclists? I mean, this is right up your alley. Did somebody else tell you about it? Did you see it online? How'd you find out?
I've been an ambassador for Beyond Type 1 since their inception. And as you're probably aware, they just celebrated their 2-year anniversary a few months ago. And, of course, so I pay special close attention to what they do. I've been a featured athlete, rad dad for them a couple times in the past. And so I keep a pretty good pulse onto what they were doing. And so I saw the opportunity come across my email, and I was like, wow. I just immediately knew that was me. I had to go do it. And so I immediately thought about it for a very short time and applied for the opportunity. And I'm a crazy NLP guy, neuro-linguistics programming. If you believe it, you can achieve it. And I just knew I would be chosen, and not to sound arrogant or egotistical or anything, but that I just felt it. And I have had an amazing life, being 52 years of age, having T1D for 46 years. You know, I just have amazing stories, and it's my opportunity to go share them with the world on how we must make type 1, type none before I'm done.
I love that. Okay, so you and I are a little older than many of the bikers on this trip. I'm talking to as many as I can before you all set off. What are you going to tell them? Because between you and me, Kevin, a couple of these kids are nervous. This is their first experience doing something this big, and they're nervous. What would you tell them?
Well, you know, it's interesting you ask that question, because I see a lot of their questions and fears, and of course, I fear nothing in life except for the fact that I might not wake up tomorrow, and every day is a gift. And this is an opportunity to show the world that type 1 diabetes, it's a bag of tricks, man. It's freaking, it never sleeps, you know? And so I think it's our opportunity to show the world that, you know, we can take care of this, number one, but we need to do something better as far as educating, advocating, finding a cure, because it drives me crazy. The craziest thing in life is that type 1 diabetes kills more people annually than breast cancer and AIDS combined, but you never hear anything about it. And so you go to the ball field, you know, they're doing stand-up for cancer, they're doing stand-up for this, but nobody ever stands up for T1D. And, you know, this thing has robbed my bank account blind now for 46 years, and that needs to change. And so I would tell them that this is an opportunity to not only make a difference in their lives, but the world. And I think they just have to look at the big picture. I totally understand their fears, because I don't think, you know, I've been riding bicycle for years, and, you know, not professionally ever, but, you know, the wannabe hack that's out there doing it to the best of his ability to stay up with the big dogs. I have a friend who's an Ironman by the name of Ironman Daniel Williams, and my goal in life has always been to stay up and catch him, and man, I got to tell you, this guy's an athlete. And so I don't know that there's even any training in the world that can prepare you to ride a bicycle 4,300 miles across the USA. But I would tell them that, hey, we're a team, and team in my world stands for together everyone achieves more, and we're all going to be together in this, so no one's going to be left behind. And I understand the fears. My biggest fear of the whole event actually is the weather. I mean, type 1 diabetes is old hat to me because it's been my life, you know. But my biggest fear is actually the weather. And so I understand the concerns. But, hey, I'm the most motivational and inspirational guy in the world, so they're all going to be just fine.
That's fantastic. And what would success look like for you on this journey? Is it about finishing the bike ride and being okay? What else would you like to accomplish when you finish? What would success look like?
Well, my goal is, once again, to show the world that, you know, we need to do a better job educating, advocating, and most importantly, finding a cure. I always say that I've had over 300,000 plus injections and counting. I'm a winner, not a whiner, but a cure would be so much finer. And so that's one of my biggest goals to get out of it. And in addition to that is that I'm a small business owner and a crazy entrepreneur, is to hopefully have the opportunity to go be a spokesperson and an advocate for, you know, the world that, you know what, we need to do a better job. I actually sold my business to go on this adventure. And so I spent an enormous amount in healthcare expenses as a small business owner, and to the tune of over $26,000 in a 12-month period, because we pay our own healthcare. You know, the company doesn't pay for it. We pay it, which comes off our bottom line. which that's another insane thing about this disease, is the financial burden that it places on one. And it's just not me. This is the world. And the fact that when I was diagnosed in 71, the testing, it was so archaic compared to today. And I just wrote an article for Beyond Type 1 not too long ago that is titled, I've spent $1 million life to date to stay alive. And those numbers are just preposterous in my mind. And we need to do better as a country. And we need to change that, because that is just obscene. And, I've never missed out on anything, don't get me wrong, but I'm not the only one that, is being robbed blind because of a chronic disease they certainly didn't ask for, I assure you. Yeah. And so that's my number one goal is, educate, advocate, and provide proceeds for a cure. However, I hope to be able to walk out after this and be able to go tell my story further to the world and be a much larger advocate and spokesperson for someone, whether it be, Beyond Type 1 or who may it be.
Wonderful. Well, best of luck to you. This is fantastic. I'm so excited for all of you, and I'll be following along. So keep us posted. I'll check in on the road. Thanks for joining me, Kevin.
Oh, I can't wait. We'll stay in touch, and thank you for having me. Have a spectacular day.
Lots more information about Bike Beyond and Beyond Type 1 at diabetes-connections.com. And I am thrilled that one of our sponsors is one of their sponsors as well, Dexcom. And when Benny was younger, he was totally out there sharing about his diabetes all through elementary school. Didn't mind checking or dosing in class, sports, anywhere. But like a lot of middle school kids, he is getting more private. I was surprised to see how much the Dexcom is helping with that. Being able to discreetly check the display on his smart device or the Dexcom receiver is a lot less cumbersome than getting out all the gear to finger stick. The Dexcom G5 mobile continuous glucose monitoring system is the first FDA-approved device to let you make treatment decisions without pricking your finger. CGM-based treatment requires finger sticks for calibration, may result in hypoglycemia if calibration not performed or symptoms expectations do not match CGM readings. For more information, go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Dexcom logo.
You're listening to Diabetes Connections with Stacey Sims.
When we were thrown into the diabetes community 10 and a half years ago in December of 2006, I hoped I would get good information. I was searching for support. I never expected to make friends. And yet that is exactly what has happened. And it is always fun when I can talk to my friends for the podcast. So my guests today are Christel Aprigliano and Anna Norton, two women that I have been so fortunate to get to know over the last couple of years specifically. And they both do invaluable work for our community. Sure, I'm biased because we're friendly, but they really go above and beyond. Christel has formed the Diabetes Unconference, and Anna is heading up Diabetes Sisters, which has their weekend for women. And for the first time, these two groups are coming together to have an event in the fall. It is in Alexandria, Virginia, October 13th through 15th. I will link everything up at diabetes-connections.com. Registration, hotel, all that sort of thing. I'm going to be there in attendance and doing a lot of podcasting stuff. But I just think that these two conferences, coming out of the Friends for Life conference, which I've talked about quite a bit, this one is different. First of all, Friends for Life is for families. There is something for everyone: grandparents, parents, siblings, spouses, kids, little kids. But these conferences are for adults. Now, it doesn't mean they're not for spouses or loved ones. You'll hear Christel and Anna talk about that. But these are not for children. And I think that changes things in a very important and valuable way, because our community needs all of those connections. I will also share that this interview was a comedy of errors. It was one of those times where the workman outside of Anna's window would start and stop. It sounded at one point, I swear, there was like a 3-piece brass band out. I don't know what was going on outside her window. And Christel dropped in and out once or twice. I think my dog started barking. We've edited it to the point where you really shouldn't hear any of that. But man, I don't know what happened or what was in the water that day. It was a hoot. The information's great. Okay, the sound might be a little off here or there, But here is my talk with Anna and Christel. All right, so these are two great events, but let me ask you, and I'll start with you, Christel, if I could, why put these two together? I mean, they're not exactly the same. Certainly, there's a lot of differences. So why put them together in one weekend?
So I will tell you, I believe that, it's the peanut butter chocolate, two great tastes that taste great together. What I find is that both Diabetes Sisters and the Diabetes Collective are very similar in our goals. And what that is to create this peer-to-peer support that sort of transcends the face-to-face meetings. And so when Anna and I started discussing doing a joint conference and a co-located conference, it just seemed sort of like a natural fit for us to do this together.
Anna, what were the conversations like? Was this pretty easy? As Christel said, you got the peanut butter in my chocolate. No, you got, is it that easy to come together?
Well, actually, it really was. And I think that for some time, both Christel and I were thinking about co-locating a conference, and we hadn't shared that with one another. And we just sat down one day and started talking about it. And we probably decided to do it within 5 minutes of starting our conversation. And again, like Christel said, it just seemed like this perfect fit, very similar mission and vision of what we like to do with peer support. The Diabetes Unconference really provides this wonderful peer support, whereas the Diabetes Sisters Weekend for Women provides the support, but also the validation from the experts. So it just seems like this perfect fit to have participants talk about what they're doing and learn from one another, and then come to the other side and hear from a CDE or a psychologist to validate the feelings that they're feeling or to validate the actions that they're taking to better manage diabetes. So it just seemed like this perfect fit. We had talked a lot about our individual conferences over time, and then when we just sat down, it just kind of came to fruition right away.
Well, and before we go any further, tell us about the conferences. Christel, let's start with you. The Unconference was the very first episode of this podcast, and I know some things have changed since then, and thank you again for taking a chance on a brand new show like this 2 years ago. What is the Unconference now? What should people expect, and why should they come?
Back when the very first episode was, we've been doing this now for 3 years, and we've expanded a little bit. It went from just being one conference per year to 2 conferences per year, and we've done 3 in Las Vegas and 1 in Atlantic City, and now we'll be doing this one coming up in Alexandria, Virginia. I think what has sort of progress is we have new individuals coming in, and then we have this amazing group of what we call the DunCon alum. And these are individuals who have already been through the process of figuring out what exactly the Diabetes Unconference is all about. So we've got new individuals who are almost ushered in and carried through by the alumni. And it has actually allowed, I think, the participants to develop these incredibly trusting relationships much more quickly than our very first conference, because everybody knows, well, majority of them know what to expect. And so we actually get a little bit deeper than we would have on the first time that we did something like this. So I'm thrilled that it's continued, and that we've got individuals who they say, no matter where we hold this, we will be there because it's important that we have this connection.
Anna, what is Diabetes Sisters? Can you explain that conference?
Yeah, so the Weekend for Women conference series is something that originated in 2010. And it was really designed to be a weekend of networking and support for women living with diabetes. We always kept it small at about 100 women, with 1 or 2 tracks of different educational sessions where women could learn more in-depth things about living with diabetes. So we've always had educational sessions that have been led by professionals in the diabetes field, sessions on diabetes and technology, or diabetes and distress and depression, nutrition, healthy eating, intimacy, all kinds of topics, even eating disorders, which we brought up when a lot of folks were not talking about eating disorders and diabetes. So we've always been unafraid to talk about the topics that really are relevant in our lives as women that live with diabetes. And there was always a peer support component that came with that, because the conference has never been large in numbers. It's always given women the opportunity to get to know one another, create relationships that over years continue to develop and grow. So when we bring the conference out, women, just like Christel said, they sign up right away, they book their rooms right away, they stay early, they come early, they stay late so that they can spend more time with each other. So it's always been this wonderful gathering of women to learn more about diabetes, to learn from each other on how to live better, to support one another, to lift each other up through sometimes some failures or challenges that we may have in living with diabetes.
What about partners, parents, that sort of thing, Christel? Because I know that's evolved too.
That has actually evolved, and our second year, we added what we call PLUs, which are people who love us. And so that can be parents, it can be significant others, spouses, it can be even just close friends. In Las Vegas this year, we had a friend who has been a friend of one of our alumni come because she thought it was very, very important to understand the different perspective and what other people were focusing on when you have somebody with diabetes that you love very much and you want to support them. So this part has evolved, and we have some sessions that allow these individuals to open up, and they don't, because it's a protected environment and because we create this very sacred, safe space, they can talk about their frustrations and they can actually be angry without feeling like they're going to be judged, and allowing them to be able to talk with their peers. They can learn new ways to cope. They can learn new ways to interact. And I think that it's incredibly beneficial. So that is what I have been told, because I am not, yes, I love a lot of people with diabetes, but if you have diabetes, you're not allowed to be in those sessions. And because these are sacred, safe spaces, we don't know what goes on unless the PLUs share with us during our times together. So there are times when all of us, the people with diabetes and the people who love us, will sit in a room and talk about some overarching issues and about community and things like that. But towards the end of the sessions, we usually have the PLUs come in and sort of give an overview of what they shared and sort of a missive of what they've learned over the last few days of the conference. So it's been very, very unique. One of the things that separates, obviously, Diabetes Sisters from the Diabetes Collective is that we do have a lot of individuals who are men, who are people with diabetes. And so when the PLUs come in, we have a mix of men and women, as well as the PWDs of mix of men and women. So it creates a very different dynamic because obviously men and women are different, even in their diabetes or dealing with a person who loves us. And so it helps to be able to have that sort of male-female perspective for the people who love us as well.
And Anna, I'm going to ask you in just a moment about the partners and the people who love the people who go to your conference. But just to follow up, Christel, I'm a mom of a kid with type 1. I don't have type 1 myself. And one of the things I loved about the Unconference at the beginning was it seems like sometimes people with diabetes and even kids with diabetes just need a place for you. Right? Mm-hmm. To get away from the parents, to maybe get away from their partner. And I know it's different because the Unconference is for adults. This is not
right.
something for families. This is for adults. But was there frustration from people who'd already been to say, can't we just have a place of our own? Or has the feedback been so good that you're confident this is the way to continue?
I am absolutely confident that this is the way to continue. And part of this is that we are a community. And our community is made up of people with type 1, people with type 2, gestational. These are parents. These are family members. These are friends. And the fact is that we all need peer support. And so sometimes there have been offside conversations that happen outside of the sessions where a parent will sit down with somebody who has had diabetes for 40 years and they'll say, explain to me about what it was like for you and how did you deal with this? And in the same sense, I've had conversations with parents where I've sat down and said, as being a parent now myself, but my child does not have diabetes, what's it been like for you? What has been your frustration level? And to be able to have these honest, frank conversations is what makes this unconference so very unique, because everybody is there to get support from each other. And so it's definitely here to stay. I believe that it's crucial that we continue to have these conversations between the people who love us, regardless of whether you're a parent or a spouse, because that's what we need to do. We need to crack open these sort of divides.
Anna, let me ask you about that. Tell me about what happens with Diabetes Sisters in terms of partners and the people who love the women who go to these conferences. Is there an opportunity for help and conversation?
Oh, absolutely. In 2013, we introduced a second component to our Weekend for Women conference, and it is called the Partners Prospective program. And again, that's open to partners of women that live with diabetes. It could be husbands and spouses. Could be, moms or sisters. It could be a best friend. And we continue to have the conversations with these caregivers, with these partners, and talking more about what should partners do in the event of an emergency. We've had wonderful results where we've had these group of partners come in and share information and share concerns and share their fears, again, in a very, very safe space where they can talk among each other, learn from each other, learn from some of the experts. The very first year and second year, subsequent years, we've had a CDE come in and teach the partners how to inject glucagon, talk about, what to do in the event of an emergency. We've had sessions about communication where we bring the women in and we actually discuss what are the best ways to communicate about diabetes, when are the times to bring up certain topics, what are the do's? What are the don'ts? How do women need support throughout this journey? And of course, now that we've partnered with the Unconference and the Diabetes Collective, this transcends to men that live with diabetes as well. This psychosocial aspect of living with diabetes, this big part about peer support, it goes across the spectrum to both women and men. And so I think that that's really important that we're continuing these conversations in Alexandria this fall with the collective and the Unconference, because those that attend our partners program will be in the same room as the members of the Unconference partners, the PLUs. And I'm really excited to see where those conversations will go. And again, like Christel, I'm not privy to the conversations of the partners because I am the person living with diabetes, and these sessions are not designed for me. But our results in our surveys have always shown that they have been very successful and very helpful to partners in helping them the day after the conference and what to do when they get home.
Tell me if you could, Anna, and I'm using Diabetes Sisters and the conference title kind of interchangeably here, and I apologize for that. But tell me if you could about Diabetes Sisters, because there's got to be a few people listening who are thinking, a group just for women with diabetes? I mean, sure, there's that thing that happens every month, and I know that hormone levels are crazy. But, what is it about Diabetes Sisters that really is the core of it? I mean, I'm making light in a way, but there are things that women want to talk about that are sometimes just not, they're not comfortable talking about in an environment that's mixed. And is that what Diabetes Sisters as an organization is all about?
Well, yes. Well, in 2008, when the organization was founded, it was really founded under the premise, it was founded under the experience of a woman who had a very, very lonely and isolating pregnancy living with type 1 diabetes. She just thought to herself, where can I come together and feel less lonely about this experience? And Diabetes Sisters was born out of that. It has evolved in the last 9 years into an organization that provides peer support in a non-judgment and safe space for women that live with any kind of diabetes. So So it's a completely inclusive organization as far as diabetes goes, operating under the premise that together we can learn from each other, that the differences between the diabetes are not as relevant as the similarities between the two. We do online programming as well as in-person programming. The programming not only centers around women's issues as far as they come with diabetes, things like pregnancy, intimacy challenges, menopause. Now we're hearing a lot of women ask questions about menopause, but also other issues as far as they come with diabetes, such as communication, healthier eating, physical activity. And so, we've developed this program so that we can discuss these things, but it allows women to take a couple of hours every month to just focus on their health. Women in general, and women with diabetes more so, spend a lot of time caring for others. And sometimes our own health comes second or third or fourth. So Diabetes Sisters is really an organization that makes us step back for a second, think about ourselves and how we can be better in living with chronic illness so that we can be better at caring for those people that are very important to us. And we've always operated under that premise as well.
Let me ask you both a question, and I'll start with Christel on this. You're both moms. Anna, you have a 9-year-old son. Christel, you have a 6-year-old daughter, 7-year-old daughter? Okay.
Six.
Do you think that your experience during pregnancy, and I don't want to get too personal, so take this as you will, would have been the same, was it improved by knowing each other, by knowing this community?
So I will tell you that, and I'm pretty open about this, diabetes was the least of my concerns throughout my pregnancy. I had a very difficult time staying pregnant. We had several losses. So by the time that my daughter was conceived and stuck around long enough, I had already been prepared for diabetes in pregnancy, but I was more concerned about keeping her inside and healthy in order to actually have my daughter be around. So having a community that allowed me to check in, and I had several friends who had already gone through successful pregnancies, there was a lot of comfort in knowing that I was doing the right things at the right times for my diabetes. And then they were also able to give me support, especially as I had gone through the miscarriages, and finding out that and being told it had nothing to do with my diabetes, and turning out that it really didn't have anything to do with my diabetes, but that in the end, I was able to experience the joy of having a healthy pregnancy because of my diabetes. Having diabetes obviously it sucks during pregnancy, let's be truthful. But, if you want to take the wins, I got to have a lot of ultrasounds. I got to see my daughter as she was growing inside of me. And I get extra special care at the hospital. But in the end, a lot of this had to come with knowing that so many women had gone through this before, and that diabetes was just a part of my pregnancy, but it didn't consume my pregnancy.
Anna, what about your experience?
So my experience with pregnancy was that it was very easy for me to get pregnant. That was not a problem. My biggest challenge during my pregnancy was diabetes. And I didn't have anyone that I could speak to about it. I had a wonderful medical team and a really great supportive husband and family, but no one that really understood my fears as a person living with diabetes and carrying a baby. I wish that I had some kind of peer support during the pregnancy and in the months after I delivered. I didn't have anyone. I didn't realize that I needed the peer support, but in retrospect, I know that I did need it. I wish I'd had someone to really emphasize that I should be enjoying my pregnancy rather than worrying about every blood sugar every day, every hour. I wish somebody had told me to just, sit back and enjoy those kicks and enjoy, the ultrasounds rather than always being scared of what might be coming, because obviously nothing came, nothing terrible happened. I have a very healthy and vibrant and happy, 9-year-old son right now. But I was very scared my whole pregnancy. I wish I hadn't been. I wish I had enjoyed it more. I wish my husband had enjoyed it more. And I wish I'd had the peer support to tell me what would happen after I delivered my son, what would happen to my insulin requirements, how I would feel the day that I had a low and my son was crying and I didn't know, I couldn't decide, was I going to treat my low or was I going to pick up my crying child? I wish someone would have had guided me through that psychological challenge, what was going through my mind in those months after I had my son. And I mean, I still deal with those now, and it's been almost 10 years. But in those early days, I wish someone had just told me, like, it's, he's not going to be upset with you because you treated the low. You need to take care of yourself before you can successfully take care of him. I wish someone had told me that. I wish I'd had somebody to really emphasize that to me and make me feel less guilty for having to take care of myself first.
Wow, that's a great point. I think one of the hardest things to do here on a podcast in these newsy interviews, when we're talking about events and what happens and expectations, is to convey the fun and the friendships. It's just amazing to go to conferences like this and to talk to people who immediately understand. I don't know if we can capture any of that, but I'm not wrong, right? I mean, half of this stuff, it's wonderful to learn and connect, but you're seeing friends that you never would have made. Christel, it's amazing the atmosphere that you all have created to make that happen.
One of the reasons why, and I've talked about this before, that the Unconference came into existence was because some of the major changes that I made in my daily diabetes management came from casual conversations with individuals at other research style conferences. And being able to bring that sort of casual conversations into sessions creates a completely different atmosphere. Mm-hmm. And there is something about that me too. And hey, what did you do when? And oh my God, I never thought of that. But at the same time, we are a relatively rowdy bunch. I love people with diabetes and those who love us. We are incredibly resilient. And because of that, even the shyest among us or the most introverted among us tend to find their space. And we call us the tribe. I mean, you find your tribe and you love them hard. So from the very first Unconference, it's wonderful. I get daily texts from individuals who I never would have met otherwise, because they never thought that they needed the Diabetes Unconference or this type of peer support. I have people who go on vacations together and they've met on coming to a conference. And it is wonderful to be able to create this peer-to-peer support that goes well beyond a single weekend. These have become some of the closest friends that I have ever had. And that's strange to say, is because just because you have diabetes doesn't mean we're going to be friends, but it does help accelerate the friendships, I think. So we tend to have a really good time when we're all together. And the conference is more about being uplifting. I mean, there are some incredibly heavy moments during the Diabetes Unconference, but overall, people feel when they walk away that they have benefited from the friendships that they've created and from the love that comes from being able to share without being judged.
And Anna, similar question to you. I almost get the feeling that for many people, these conferences or even the connection that you all provide during the year is almost like diabetes camp for adults. And I don't necessarily mean that, you're spraying shaving cream on counselors and that kind of thing, but my son always comes back from camp with a text list, as Christel kind of mentioned, or his friends that they can, he can Skype or even FaceTime with, and they support each other. And it's hard for adults to connect like that. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I think what happens with Diabetes Sisters programming, whether it's a monthly support group meeting that women attend or it's this annual Weekend for Women conference, it creates this bond between women. And the one thing that begins their bond is that they all have diabetes in common. But that's not the only thing that they have in common. They have other things. They might have children, or they might both be runners, or a multitude of things. You know, they might like traveling. They may work for the same company and just didn't know it. But what I think happens after these gatherings is that it reinvigorates women, and it allows them to recreate their goals or reestablish goals. And then it provides them accountability partners or accountability friends and people that they have learned and met and have grown to trust. And so then they can really speak candidly and raw. They're very, very raw about conversations as they pertain to diabetes and life centered around diabetes. And I think that's what's really important. And that's what has these women coming back year after year, month after month to participate in programs like this, programs that are peer support. And we have women that are part of diabetes that have attended the Diabetes Unconference and say the same thing about what they get out of those weekends at the Unconference. I think it's just very, very important for anyone that lives with diabetes to know that they're not alone, to understand that if they have a question that they haven't asked, probably 5 or 6 other people have the same question. So it's really important to talk about the things that are troubling or challenging, or that we're finding successful in our care and in our lives with diabetes, so that others can feel validated by that, so that there's less isolation and there's less loneliness when it comes to it. And I think that our programming really succeeds in allowing people to see that and understand it better.
Before I let you go, let's just talk a little bit about the mechanics of the conference and signing up, because I know it's unique to have these conferences all together. When people are registering, is it clear? I'm sure it's pretty easy. Anything you want to make sure that people realize or think about when they go to sign up? Anna, I'll start with you.
So registration is all on one page. There are 4 different ways that you can register. One is a woman will register for the Weekend for Women conference, which means that she can attend the women's only sessions. There is one track that will have sessions that are geared specifically toward women needs. There is another registration tab that is for partners of the women that are registering for the Weekend for Women conference. They will be grouped into a group for partners or the people who love us. And their track will have both education and a component of the Diabetes Unconference. There is an Unconference track that attendees can choose, which is an Unconference, the Diabetes Unconference, the unscripted attendee-made agenda. And then there is a 4th registration tab, which is for the people who love us as part of the Diabetes Unconference. Those folks are grouped with the Partners Prospective program with diabetes. And then there is a 1/4 track, which is a general education track that is open for anyone that registers for the conference. And those are educational sessions, and they are geared toward both men and women living with diabetes, their partners, their caregivers, or even industry partners that are there visiting us for the weekend that want to learn more about a specific topic on diabetes.
Excellent. And Christel, did we miss anything there? Anything you want to make sure to mention?
No, I think what I'm really excited about is the opportunity for everybody to get some general education, because some individuals, I believe, whether you're a PLU or a person with diabetes, is that it's always good to have a little bit of extra knowledge. So this gives us an opportunity to have everybody learn from the experts. And I think I'm really excited to bring in and the partners from Weekend for Women and the people from Diabetes Unconference, the PLUs, to get together. And it's sort of going to be a mix of some very PLU partner specific education, and then the sessions that are strictly psychosocial and learning from, a peer-to-peer learning experience. So Anna gave a really great overview. It sounds confusing, but it's not. You'll register for either Weekend for Women or Diabetes Unconference if you're a person with diabetes. If you're a partner or a person who loves us, you can register, but it still filters into the same group. And, as always, for the people who are registered for the Diabetes Unconference, they'll get additional information about what they want to talk about during the unconference sessions, because one of the very unique aspects of the unconference is that those questions that you may not be able to talk about with friends, family, the medical professionals that surround you, those are opportunities. So if you want to learn more about diabetes burnout or aging with diabetes or eating disorders, if you can bring this up. We have a survey that gets sent out, and the attendees decide what those conference sessions are going to be. So it allows individuals to create their own diabetes unconference sessions and then have the ability to go into the general education sessions when they want to.
That's great. Well, I look forward to seeing it firsthand. I'm coming in the fall. It'll be my first time at either of these conferences, so I'm thrilled to check it out and be one of the PLUs, and it'll be great. So thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it, both of you.
It's a pleasure.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Links to everything, links for everyone at diabetes-connections.com. Or, if you are listening in a podcast app, there should be links to everything in the show notes as well. In some apps, you do have to click full story or click to see more or click to see full episode, but the links should all be there. I like you to go to the website. I'm probably a really bad business person for saying you can just look at it in the app, but I just want you to get the information. And if you don't have the Diabetes Connections app, go ahead and get that. That is the best way to listen to the show. Just go to your app store, wherever you get your apps, Apple or Android, Diabetes Connections. You'll never miss a show. It automatically loads, and you can share it very easily and give feedback. You can email me right from the app. You can text other people. You say, here's an episode, text them the app. It's really, really easy to do. All right. Again, as I said, links to everything, the conferences we talked about, Bike Beyond, the award stuff that I'm asking you to participate in and help me out. All of that is there. Next week, JDRF Children's Congress. This happens every 2 years. Cute kids descend to lobby on Congress and tell them their stories. I'm going to be talking to one of the celebrities in attendance. Very excited about that. And it is her first time going to Children's Congress. I'll also be talking to a delegate from, 15 years ago, and how it influenced her life and what she is doing now. So lots of good stuff coming up next week and in the weeks to come. Thanks for taking the time to listen. I know your time is valuable, and I really appreciate you spending some of it with me. I'm Stacey Sims, and I'll see you back here next week.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.